Hi, welcome back. I know that in the last episode I made such a fuss and talked extensively about my new schedule and how I'm going to be like so great this year at keeping track of everything and like doing stuff on a schedule and getting podcasts out really regularly. But I did not schedule in getting sick for a week and getting behind on work and having low energy and life getting the better of me. So next time I'll do that. Anyway, because it's been so long and because I have been on two kicks at the same time, one knitting baby things for my nephew to be, and two, for a while, I was really into finishing old projects that I haven't picked up in a long time, which is a great kick to be on. This is going to be a finished object parade. I have so many finished objects, and then, of course, a bunch of new whips that replace them. But there's a lot, and it's a couple hours before the baby shower right now. I have to film this because I want to show you all the things I made for the baby, but I also have to hurry because I have to get ready to leave on time to get to the baby shower. So let's just go. Let's go. I know I showed this one before, but this was the only item that I had finished last time. It's a little tiny flax sweater for the baby. Very tiny. Super, I mean, like, if it comes out fat, it's never going to fit, but it's cute. It's soft. All of the items that I made for baby are either superwash or acrylic or cotton or some blend of them. I made sure that everything I chose can go in the washing machine because you don't give something to a baby unless you can wash it. That's kind of silly. Last time I had showed the start of this one. I believe this pattern is called Good Old Raglan. It was a free pattern. The stripes are included, written into it. And I decided to use some just DK weight acrylic that I had left over from a project that I had not finished in the past but had decided not to continue with. And then I have a bunch of 10-gram DK mini skeins from an old subscription club I was in that I never know what to do with. So I chose 4 of them that I thought went well together to do the stripes on this guy. And I think it's very cute. The neckline and the hem at the bottom both have elastic thread in them because I did a sewn bind off on all of the edges and it really didn't look good. This acrylic yarn isn't springy enough to kind of stand up to a sewn bind off. So I ended up looping that elastic through loosely so it won't be tight around the baby, but at least it's not like fanning out like frill. Like it didn't look good before, but now I think at least it holds it closely enough that it's not ugly anymore. And I never did get a chance to block this, so I really hope that the colors in these minis don't run into the white the first time they wash it, but I never had a chance, so. Okay, I made this little lovey that I think is just so cute, if immensely wonky. This was a paid pattern. I believe it's called Archie the Dragon. And I knew I had set aside, I had one skein from my paleobotany club from Yarnaceous Fibers that was like this green and brown, like super pastel, pretty with speckles. It was very pretty. I don't remember what the colorway was called, but I'm sure you can read it. And I had set that aside to make this lovey with. And then when I actually got ready to sit down to do it, I realized that you actually need 200 grams, and I only had one skein. And I kind of was rummaging through my stash to find something to hold double with it, but I really liked the color, and I didn't want to ruin the integrity of the colorway by choosing something that would kind of dilute it. And I was absolutely delighted to find that I had two 50-gram skeins of this fingering weight painted cotton from Hobie. It came in a larger pack with all sorts of colors, and I had no recollection of that pack including a color so close to the one that I was trying to match that it didn't dilute the color. It actually kind of like highlighted it. So I think that worked out really well. I can't even show you the leftovers because both of them, no, actually the larger skein I had a little bit left over, but the 250 grams, I literally used all the scraps to sew it together. I had nothing left at the end. Archie's cute. I think his head came out really well. I think his features are really cute and symmetrical, which is the important thing because that's the adorable part. All the rest is very wonky, and I made a lot of mistakes. And I don't like amigurumi, and it's a lot of extra work and seaming, and it's a pain. And I did not feel like fixing any of it. And you know what? He's an infant. He's not even born yet. He doesn't know anything about geometry, so he's not going to criticize me. So first of all, this hexagon blanket that you make for the body, I realized when I was doing the border at the end after crocheting the entire thing that this wedge right here is like half the size, a little more than half the size of what all the other wedges are. And it's supposed to be the same. And I was like, well, I'm not going to redo the whole blanket because the one wedge is weird, especially because it's not really supposed to lay flat, right? Like you kind of hold it up like this or it gets crumpled, like who cares? So I carried on, just kind of improvised around it. Then later, when I'm sewing the whole thing together, I realized that the two arms I made are very different sizes. Like the first one I made was really small. And so I ripped back some rounds on the larger one so that at least they're the same length, but this one's still a little girthier. And I don't know what to say. Like again, he's a baby. You shouldn't care, but like, I don't know if you could see it. I'm like hoping that since they're opposite from each other and you can't actually like hold them up together, that it's not super obvious, but this one's definitely better. And then the wings, which are cute, like won't stop curling into place. I didn't block, I mean, I blocked the blanket part before I sewed it on, but none of the other parts were blocked. I don't think you're supposed to block amigurumi, and like I don't want to put any like spray starch in it because, or like wire or anything, because it's for a baby. That doesn't make sense. So they're just kind of curly wings, I guess. I don't know. But here's Archie the dragon. I think the color is perfect and I like how he came out, and I think he'll match the nursery because I'm pretty sure that's the theme of the nursery, and I hope everybody likes it. I should say, I didn't mention yet, all of the baby items I made were completely from stash. I know that when I started my yarn ban, I mentioned that I wanted to have the freedom to buy yarn to make things for baby, but I didn't have to. I found everything that I have made so far in my stash, including these two baby blankets. So actually, let's do this. We had already introduced this one last time. I had just kind of gotten started on it. I don't even remember what this pattern's called. I kind of hated working on this. I love how it came out, but I mentioned before, I get very bored with repetitive stitch patterns that you kind of just have to pay a little bit of attention to. And this one was a 6-row repeat, very easily memorizable. I think I was about down here in the pattern before I never looked at the pattern again. I just ran with it. But I had to force myself to work on this. After I got through the initial part where I was doing the lower border and I got into the section where there is some stockinette, then it was just like a seemingly endless task, and it was not enjoyable anymore because there was no checkpoint close by. My idea was to do one repeat a day because one 6-row repeat was a little over an inch, and I knew that if I did it in order and I just kept up with it, doing one a day for a while, that I would finish in plenty of time. I did that for most of February, and then right towards the end, I got super burnt out and did not want to touch it anymore. And I did take a break from it, but when I started up again, I just kept doing one repeat a day. I finished it last week, and I blocked it yesterday. I think I used the whole skein. I had a tiny little scrap left over, and I bound off one row early because I thought I was going to run out. I might have been able to squeak out one more row, but either way, I just about made the pattern as is with the exact single skein I had of this old Caron 1 pound. So stash busting and gifting all in one. The other baby blanket I made is kind of ugly, but let me explain. So this is a Daphne Afghan by Tony Lipsy. I had made one of these for a different baby in the past, and I knew it was very quick and mindless, and I liked making that one. It's a free pattern, so I don't mind saying any details about it, but the construction of it is very straightforward. You're basically making 4 shawls. In this case, 4 very small shawls that you're seaming together. And I didn't do this quite to pattern. She has a bunch of sizes, I believe. Maybe only the baby size is free and the other ones are paid. I don't remember. But this is smaller even than the baby size because I thought I had 3 cakes of this green yarn. And it turned out after I got started, I only had 2. But since it's created in even quarters and seamed together, it was pretty easy for me to kind of rip back and do the math. So I had made the first triangle to size to pattern, which was too big. And then when I did the second one and I couldn't get all the way through the second one with that first cake of yarn, I was like, wow, this is half my yarn and these are half the pieces. So I have to make this one cake, make a full 2 triangles before I can proceed. So that's what I did. And I ended up taking off several rows. And then I knew exactly how far to go for the second half of the blanket. I'm pretty sure I made this in like 2 or 3 days. It was very quick, very mindless. I loved it. Now let me explain why it's ugly. So I don't like this green color. I don't really know. I think I bought it from Target. It's like a Target brand acrylic yarn that I found on their website during the pandemic. I've never seen yarn in a Target store, but it was definitely their store brand. And it's been in my stash forever because I bought it online. And then once it got here, I was like, oh, I kind of hate that color and I don't know what I would do with it. So when I thought of making this, I was putzing around forever, not able to decide on a color to use with this Ferris wheel, which is the sort of self-striping color changing neutral here. I had a couple of cakes of Ferris wheel, I think 3, and I knew I wanted to use a solid with it because I thought it would look a little busy if there was too striping or too variegated. And every solid that I put with it, I just thought didn't quite click. And this green one, I was like, well, maybe. And then I did up a little swatch, not really a swatch. It's one of those triangle shawl shapes that you start in the middle and it gets bigger. So I basically just did the first few repeats, which effectively was a tiny little triangular swatch. And when I did that, I showed my husband and I was like, this is too ugly, right? And he said, Shrek, which incidentally is a favorite of my sister's and kind of a joke that she loves it too much. And I was like, well, that seals the deal. I am making a Shrek blanket. And that's what I did. And I had actually already bought like Shrek themed baby bibs at the mall a long time ago to give to her at the baby shower. So I'm just going to wrap them up together so the theme is super obvious and she doesn't hate it. I mean, she might still hate it, but she can't say anything. So. Okay. Oh, wait, there's still more finished objects. Those are just the ones for the baby. I have these 2 small things that I'll show also. Since we're going to see my family today and we don't see them all the time, I've realized late last night that my sister asked a couple months ago if I would crochet her a lanyard, and I totally forgot. So last night, I think this took me like 45 minutes. I just had some scrap fingering weight cotton yarn from Hobie, and I have a bunch of hardware left over from when I made my Trailblazer backpack last summer. So I just took this swivel hook thing and I crocheted a strap basically. I did a little bit of a stitch pattern in it. It's kind of not visible. It's just to give it a little bit of texture. And then I crocheted around the thing at the bottom. Super straightforward. I did not use a pattern. I just kind of ran with it. And I'll give her that today when I see her. And then also, since we were going to see her anyway, I tried a little embroidery. I had seen this embroidery pattern last December and I immediately thought of my sister and I thought that she would enjoy it, both the image and the fact that it's very representative of her. And I bought the embroidery pattern, not that I've embroidered since I was like 10 years old. And I never had time to make it for her for Christmas, but I thought I'll just make her one for her birthday. Her birthday's in a couple weeks, but since I'm going to be seeing her today, I thought I would rather try to finish it up before the baby shower so I can wrap it up and give it to her this weekend, and then she can open it on her birthday. So I made this adorable little embroidery piece. I don't know. So it's very simple. I think I spent 3 evenings total working on this. It was super beginner friendly. I really liked how it was written and it was easy to understand. the pattern included links to YouTube tutorials by the author for all the different types of stitches. That said, there's literally only 2 types of stitches in this. I think that they just have them made up for any and all of their patterns. So it's just these this line drawing part is all backstitched, and then there's this reverse chain stitch which kind of makes the sweater look like a knit texture, and then you make a tassel and sew the tassel on to look like hair spilling over the edge from the top of their head. And I think that's so stinking cute. And I made it like my sister's hair color. She reads constantly. It's her knitting, I would say. And I think she'll enjoy this because it's very minimalistic, but it looks just like her. And I did kind of sew the back up and do this very rustic stitching around the edge just to put this piece of felt on to cover all the backing. So I think it looks tidier than it was, but maybe a little imperfect. And I did enjoy, I have to say, giving this little tassel a haircut to look more like a person's hair after it was attached. That was a surprisingly enjoyable part of that for me. I also surprisingly really enjoyed embroidering, and I wasn't sure that I would like it. I thought I might get bored and find it tedious, and actually it was pretty fun. And I don't know that I would enjoy cross stitch as much, but I really like the freehand kind of drawing nature of embroidery like this style. And I think I'm going to try more of it in the near future. Let's look at the objects. I have 3 sweaters that I finished that were mostly finished, but hibernating for a while, for some period of time, because I didn't finish them. So first of all, I have this, which, oh, the front is not buttoned. This is the Effortless cardigan. This was made out of a really soft, floofy little alpaca yarn that I got at a yarn store last summer in St. John, New Brunswick. And I made this sweater in its entirety last fall. And when I was on the road at Rhinebeck, this was my main project, and I was determined to finish it and sew the buttons on so that I could wear it on that last day of Rhinebeck that I was filming, which was the Saturday. So that Friday night, after I had gone to all of the film festivals, I went back to my Airbnb and I continued trucking away at this, and I finished and I bound off the button band, and I hadn't picked up the right number of stitches. I picked up way too few, and it was doing that thing where the button band kind of scrunches up and makes the front look like a high-low hem, and it looked really bad. And I was like, you know what? I'm screwing it up because I'm rushing. That's not what my knitting is supposed to be about, so I'm just going to set it aside. And I did, and then I went yarn shopping for all of my Christmas projects the next day, and I came back from Rhinebeck and didn't pick this up for 4 months, 5 months. So I had been aware of this for a long time. I've been thinking about it, about how it would be pretty simple and not too time consuming to just fix it so that I could wear it. And still, it was probably the last couple days of February before I actually, got the energy to pull it out. And when I did, I unraveled the button band and reknit it in one evening and sewed on the buttons and had it blocking that evening. I finished it in a matter of hours, 2 or 3 hours, which, if that's not my work ethic in a nutshell, I don't know what is. But I dilly-dallied on this for 5 months when it was 3 hours away from being done. And I'm glad to have it. It's comfy. I've worn it a couple times. The yarn was very soft and just delightful to work with. Wearing it is a little itchy, which is not an experience I've had before. Not too itchy for me, but I do usually want to have a layer underneath it. Ooh, also it's got pockets, which I think is fun. Another sweater that I technically finished, although not wearable for me, but I don't want to go any further, is this from, I literally don't remember what it's called. It's from Janine Miska's Modern Crochet Sweaters book. I had started this a long time ago. It sat in my unfinished objects for like about 10 or 11 months. This was something I started last winter and got off of it when I got into spring knits and then did not look back. So it's got this fun bow detail at the back. What I finished last year was the entire bodice and the bow and attaching the bow. And then I started a sleeve and I got halfway up and realized that the stitch pattern looked entirely different on the sleeve portion as it did on the body portion. And when I realized that, I got frustrated and I set it aside and I didn't pick it up for that big long stretch of time. So when I finally picked it up again, I frogged the sleeve and I went back to the instructions, and I realized that the reason that the texture was different was, of course, because the body is crocheted flat back and forth. And then I had started doing the sleeve in the round because the pattern says to join in the round. And then if you just keep continuously doing the stitch in the outside of every stitch instead of doing outside, inside, outside, inside, then it does look different. When I went back and reread the pattern, it does say join in the round, but it tells you to turn every row. So you are doing inside, outside in the round. So I finished it up. I don't like it. It doesn't fit. I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet. This yarn I don't think will frog very well. It's this like cotton silk blend from Lion Brand that's kind of fragile, and when you tug on it, it disintegrates a little bit. Not that it was difficult to work with, it does kind of knot and fix to itself, and I think frogging a crochet project would do more damage to the yarn than actually reclaiming it, and it just wouldn't be fruitful. I don't know, maybe I'll gift it to somebody smaller than me. So the bodice fits okay, but this neckline, this V-neck, is way too low on me. I mean, it looks like 18th century Versailles low on me. And I actually shortened the V-neck too. She had, like, in the pattern it was written longer, but she had instructions for how to modify it to make it deeper or less deep. And I definitely made it less deep, and it's still way too deep. So I guess there's an option. I could like add more stitches, do some sort of border on it to go around and make it smaller. But the sleeves are way too tight as written in the pattern. It's not comfortable. In general, the fit is too tight and not great. So maybe I'll set it aside and come back to it another time. I do still have some more of the yarn if I want to try to modify it to add to it. Or maybe I'll just end up giving it to somebody smaller than me. But I don't know. I'm not particularly proud of it. It's not like a nice finished piece. So I don't know that it's something that I would like gift. And then one more finished object that I'm actually really proud of. You might recall me saying during Vlogmas that I never finished my husband's 2022 Christmas sweater, but I did now. Hi, Olive. So another one that's been in the back of my mind that I've been thinking about and a little bit guilty about all the time, knowing that it's in this house, nearly finished. This was another one where I had knit both the front and back in their entirety and seamed them together, and I just needed to make the sleeves. I actually ended up loving working on this again. And I think it's just because it sat in hibernation so long that it was kind of fresh and not repetitive anymore by the time I took it out. And since the first step of taking it out and getting started on it again was casting on for the sleeves, not like continuing on something that was already started, it kind of felt like casting on something new because I was starting a new piece fresh. And I ended up finishing it pretty quickly after I pulled it out again, a matter of days. So again, this one has these cute little elbow patches that are knit into it, which I thought was really fun. I don't know, they look really neat. It's also got similar detailing on the shoulders here and that little wavy line that ties into this textured panel, which goes all the way down the side on both sides of the body. It fits him. It's a touch big after blocking, but this wool of the Andes is such a nice texture. I love working with it. I think it came out really nice, and I think it looks really good on him, and I'm proud of it. And I'm proud that I finished it mostly because I was avoiding it for so long, and then once I pulled it out, I was like, oh, this is fun. I like this project. Why haven't I been doing anything? Gotta get a move on because I gotta pack up and get ready for the baby shower. But I have some whips to show you and no acquisitions because I'm doing my yarn ban, although I did pre-order one hand-dyed, but we'll talk about that when it comes in the next episode or in a future episode. So my sweet shop blanket, I had actually progressed a lot on last podcast, but I forgot to talk about it. It was in a different spot than the rest of my whips, and I forgot to grab it. I love this. Look at this selection of yarn. How could you not love this project? These are my colors, man. All right. So this, I believe this direction is actually as far as it's going to go. I'm sure you can't really see it on the frame that I have set up here, but I think it's either that both, like the L is the full edge of the blanket, or that this side is going to get one more square. I don't remember. I haven't looked at it in a minute. I do have a chart in the notes on my phone that I made so I can remember what I was doing. But I've now used all of the colors, more than halfway. Most of the colors will appear at least twice. All of the mini skeins that I used for my advent calendar, there's enough to make 2 squares out of. And then all of these fingering weight sock skeins that I had left over from the Paleo Botany Club, I'm holding double. And those are each going to be used to make 10 squares total. So if I haven't actually gotten to the part where like I'm on square 10 of any of those colors and I'm nervous that I'll come up short. But since they're held double and they've got a lot of similar colors, I think I can fudge it towards the end if I have to. But the white that I'm using for just like the main color, this Barocco Ultra Wool DK, I originally bought 5 skeins of this because when I wanted to get started on this blanket, that's all my local yarn store had. And based on the math that Laura Penrose has in the pattern, I should need 7 of them. But I thought, you know what? It's like an off-white. The dye lots are not going to vary very much. The whites aren't touching each other anywhere in the blanket anyway. I don't think it'll notice if I have to grab 2 from another dye lot later. I really want to get started, so I just did. I actually think I might be able to make the whole blanket out of just these 5. You're supposed to be able to get 10 squares out of 100 grams. I've been getting 15. The first one did exactly 15. The second one was like 14 and 3/4. It ran out and I had a little bit more to go. So, but either way, that's still 75 squares. And is that right? Yeah, 75 squares, and I only need 72 for my blanket. There's an optional I-cord edge around the blanket when I'm done, which is a long way off. I haven't actually worked on this in a while, although I do really enjoy working on this one. I've just been fixating on my other projects, but there's an optional I-cord edge around it, and I won't have enough left to do that, but there was a full skein that was a sort of like yellow white-ish color that came with the advent calendar. That was the full skein, and I wasn't going to use it for this, but I'm going to look when I'm done and see if it's yellow enough that it would look like a contrasting border around the edge and not look like a clashing off-white that's just, you know what I mean? Like if it looks too similar to the white that I used, I think it would look just dissonant. But I think if it's different enough, it'll look like a contrast and it would look really nice and tied all together, and it's the same yarn and it would texturally be really cool. So, okay, this is the only other whip that I'm showing today that I've talked about before. I do still have that black mohair cardigan going. I haven't worked on it much because it's so boring. It's so boring. I can't. The stitches are small. It's all black. It's just continually back and forth now doing this body forever, and I can't focus on it. So I've been letting myself do other things. But this is my Berlin scarf, which is nearly done. So I had 5 balls of this yarn in the first place. It's Wool Addicts by Lang Yarn. The base is called Faith. It's this chainette blown construction that's very odd. It's a little stiff looking right now. I think it'll be gorgeous after a block. But I'm just going to keep going with as much as I can. Before I did the double knit fringe on this end, I measured the yarn ball that I was starting with, and then I did all the fringe, and then I measured what was left. So I know that this used about, I think, 17 or 18 grams. So I'm just going to keep knitting in the round until I have about 20 grams left, which should be enough to do the fringe on the other end. So I have minimal yarn waste. This is, you can see here, I literally just joined in and did like 1 round on the last ball of yarn I have for this. So I'm going to use about 60% of this ball of yarn before it's time to switch and do the fringe at the end, and then I'll block it pretty aggressively because it's not as long as I want it to be, but it is pretty stretchy, so I think it'll block out super long. This has been purely my on-the-go project for like a month and a half now. It's just, I don't even think about it. I don't work on it when I'm home at all. It's just in the car, in a Zoom meeting, you know, whatever, when I'm out and about. It's always this one. And we did have a giant snowstorm last night. You know, you might think that, well, technically it's spring and it's March 23rd. No, I think we got 8 inches of snow last night. But I have a hunch by the time I actually finish that scarf and get it all bound off and blocked and ready to wear, we will not get any snow anymore. So, c'est la vie. Okay, now these 3 I'm very excited for. Last time I showed you, I made that kind of off-book version of my favorite things knitwear sweater, number 14 V-neck. And I like how it came out. I've worn it a few times, but it's not what the pattern designer intended. It doesn't look or fit like the sample photos, and I wanted something that did. So I decided to make another one exactly to pattern, and so far I'm loving it. Now it's a little stiff, this needs to block, but this fabric is so enjoyable. Now you can see I've done the body and the neckline and everything. I'm nearly done with this sleeve, working on the ribs at the bottom, and then I have this other one. I chose this yarn, which I have no idea what it is, and I'll explain, because I had a lot of it, and I thought, well, I could probably stretch this out to be a sweater quantity. So this is what's left of this ball, which looks kind of flat, but these started out not as like donut cakes, but as these like huge, let me stick my hand inside and simulate what this ball of yarn looked like before I used it all. They're like these huge, like fat, and it's this very thin, floofy, it's like almost boucle. It's some sort of synthetic or synthetic blend. I can't really tell. I feel like there might be some wool in it. It's very toothy. It's very tangly. It never comes out of the ball except in giant bouts of yarn barf that are very difficult to deal with and knotted together. It's a pain in the butt, but the fabric that it's making is so good. Like I've never had such a difference in opinion between like working with a yarn and like the results I get. And I really, really love it. So I think it's worth struggling through this. This yarn was an unidentified package. I believe it was 2 packages, because I had 4 of these giant balls, which I believe were about 4 ounces each, maybe even 8. I don't know. It was, I think, 8 ounces each, because AC Moore, remember them? Used to have these big bins of 1 pound bags of mill ends. They would put on sale 2 for $10. 2 1 pound bags for $10. And I believe that that's what it was. I believe I bought 2 pounds of this yarn for $10. And of course, that was a while ago, because AC Moore hasn't been around for a while. And that was when I was first starting to get back. It was actually when I was first starting to crochet, period. And I don't think I had even kind of delved back into knitting yet, really. But I was just kind of collecting yarn at AC Moore when I saw it, because it was interesting and fun and new, right? I am so, so glad that I never tried to use this when I was new. This is not for beginners. This will make you quit. If I had tried to use this 5 years ago, I probably would have given up on knitting entirely, because this is so difficult to work with. But again, I think this fabric is turning out to be worth it. So I've been holding it double, which is a huge part of the problem. It is so tangly. Like I said, it comes out of the skein in tangles. So you don't get to knit very long before you have to stop and untangle and effectively like pre-draft your yarn for knitting. So it's a horrible nightmare to work with, but I like how it's coming out, and I'm excited to have this finished. This was 2 out of the 4 balls. I thought I was going to use like all 4. I'm barely going to delve into 3. So even though I hate it, I'm actually kind of excited that I have so much left, and that I'll be able to hold a single strand of this with something else in the future to make something else, because it's creating a really nice garment that I think is so squishy and fluffy and enjoyable. I don't know. It's a weird dichotomy, right? Like I hate it, but I love it. And I believe I cast this on like a day after I started, or I uploaded the last podcast. So that's been in progress for a while. And then I have 2 projects that I've been thinking about and so excited about for a long time, but I was really pressuring myself to finish up old projects before I started new ones. So these, I was like allowing myself to cast on after I wrapped up some of the others that I showed you, like the 3 sweaters that were languishing for a long time. This is a kit that I bought from Yarnaceous last year. And of course, I was so excited about it, but the yarn came in around the fall and I was working on my holiday gift knits and I just never had a chance to start, and then got into other stuff immediately after the holidays and never did it. But I am very well into my Stego sweater. The color work is a little bit scrunched. I can't wait to block it and see how it comes out. I have realized when I was doing this recently, because I was so enjoying it and flying through it, and I really, really love this yarn base. It's the same one I'm using for the colors on my Sweet Shop blanket, and the colors here look so pretty together. And I was thinking about when I was working with this, that I don't think I've ever actually finished an object that had like detailed color work. I've started a lot, and I've still got another kit from Yarnaceous Fibers for a pattern written by Mary P. Hunt, the it's called Fossil Frenzy Tee, which is so pretty, but that's fingering weight color work and a much more complicated pattern on a larger scale. So this was way easier in my opinion, because there's a couple charts of small motifs that you repeat, and then obviously there's this one big one that has the dinosaur, but it's still repeated. Like for instance, for my size, it's repeated 6 times around. That t-shirt with the dinosaur, it's like very intricate, and one repeat is the entire body. You just do 2, one for the front and one for the back, and you have to pay so much attention, and it's fingering weight and it's never ending. Whereas I found this to be so much more fun and potato chippy to work at. I did the entire yoke in like 2 days. I mean, I cast this on and was like through the Stegosauruses in like 48 hours. And now I'm just working solid on the body. So there's still some color work left to be done, because there is a little bit at the bottom before the ribbing, and then there's some at the end of the sleeves before the ribbing too. But I am in love with this. I'm in love with the colors, with the yarn. I love the pattern. Obviously, Stegosauruses are my favorite, and I just love everything about this. And I'm so close to being done with that Berlin scarf that today, when we have to drive to the baby shower out of town, I'm bringing this. And I've been looking forward all week to being able to bring this and just knitting around with this gorgeous Bronto DK from Yarnaceous Fibers and really put a dent in this sweater so I can get closer to blocking it and seeing how my color work actually looks when it's properly finished. One more. Now this one I have been flying through. This one's been my little baby of a project for the last week, and I've been working on it when I should have been working on other things. Now, I had talked about before, I made a Danica pullover by Tinderbox Crochet, I don't know, a couple of years ago, and I made it out of some novelty yarn from Lion Brand. I like the fit of it a lot. It's comfy, it's fun, but it's not very insulating. The yarn choice was kind of odd. The novelty yarn is like an acrylic cotton blend chainette that doesn't really do much. It's very drafty, so it's like one of those things where like, well, when do I have a need to have sleeves but not, cover? And I had worn it a couple times lately while I'm just around the house, and every single time I'm like, I've got to remake this. I've got to make this in a better yarn, because I do love the structure of this garment, but this was not my best choice. Then at one point when I was going through my stash, I remembered this yarn, and I could not get the idea out of my head to make a Danica pullover out of this beautiful spring, like peachy color. Like, this is so nice. So like, speaking of really loving with working with a yarn, it feels so good on the hands. I very rarely get into like such a good rhythm with crochet that I can't stop. Usually for me, crochet is a bit more piecemeal because I do it for a while and I get tired and I'd rather just go knit. But this one I haven't been able to put down. I started this less than a week ago. Like, I did the whole neck. I don't know if I'm going to leave this in here. This is shorter than I thought it would be, but it's a placeholder until I maybe find something better. But there's the whole cowl neck. There's the entire yoke. I started on the body, and then I thought, well, I think I want to crop the body a little bit. And in order to see where I'd like that body to be cropped, I want to finish the sleeves so I can see what it looks like with finished sleeves. So I think I have enough yarn to make it either nearly to pattern or to pattern. But I wanted to finish the sleeves first. So obviously this sleeve is entirely done. This one is half done, and I love it. So this yarn, I'm sorry, I'm raving about it because I love it, and you can't get it because it's from Knit Crate. Like so much of my yarn stash, it is discontinued yarn bases or yarn companies. But this was called Lofty DK. And similarly, it is a chainette construction with blown fiber in, but I didn't realize until I started crocheting with this and like just feeling it on my hands, I was like, what is this made of? I can't believe like how smooth and soft this is. This is 48% merino, 20% baby alpaca, 32% Pima cotton. This stuff is a dream. I love this. And I do remember getting my regular monthly subscription of Knit Crate, and this was what I received. And upon touching it and seeing the color, immediately they had a whole thing where you could use a discount code that came with your order to like get more of the yarn that you got in your order if you wanted to make something larger out of it. And I immediately did that. I used that code and I bought 4 more skeins. So I had 6 skeins of this total. At this point, I have basically 2 left. I did join in skein number 5 on this sleeve, but not very long ago. So I have most of 2 skeins left. So basically, by the time I get through this sleeve, I think I will have a little over 1, maybe 1 1/4, 1 1/3 left to keep going on the body until I decide it's a length that I like it. So I'm super enjoying all of my whips right now. I'm really loving having so much going, and I'm super enjoying the feeling of having freed myself of a bunch of old projects and having fewer things haunt my Ravelry projects page. You know, like it's the numbers are dwindling. I'm feeling better about my progress. I'm feeling better about deciding to cast on new projects. But also I'm loving the ones that I'm working on so much that since I started this, I haven't been tempted to cast on a single thing. I'm very excited to finish this Stego sweater. So I'm in a good place. I'm in a good place with my knitting. I'm finally getting caught up from my low energy and my sickness and back to a spot where I'm happy to be. So like I said, I don't have any acquisitions today except for one pre-order that we can talk about when the yarn comes in. But that's what I'm working on. So tell me in the comments what you're working on. I'm so glad you stuck around to the end of the video, and I hope that you subscribe so you'll be back for the next episode. I have been working so diligently on trying to redo my craft room. It's like 90% done, but I'm still wrapping up some details and trying to get good filming light to do that, which has been impossible lately. So my house is a horrible mess while I'm got this in progress, but I'm nearly done, and then I'll be able to edit those videos and bring you to my brand new redecorated craft room, which is looking so good. I can't wait until it's done, and I can't wait until I can share it with you. So I hope that you'll be here when I do. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.